Really, it's only in the 20th century, and even quite a while into the 20th century, that this changes, strangely enough. You've got the emergence in the 19th century of a new technology of representation, which one would imagine would allow the smile really to emerge in a very positive way. That is photography. But of course, photography, well, first of all, it tends to follow the conventions of painting, which is seen as the superior art form. So people tend to look in a photograph exactly as if they've been painted. But also the exposure times which the technology requires in the first decades of photography are such that people have to be there very, very rigid. Anyway, their bodies are sort of enclosed, if you like, and kept stiff. And of course, keeping a smile, even for more than a fraction of a second, is extremely difficult. It's very easy for that to turn into a smirk or a sort of a snide sort of gesture. So it's not done. By the turn of the 20th century, you have got some, much smaller exposure times and the emergence of sort of snap photography, but it's quite difficult to break down that convention. It's only really in the 1930s and 1940s that the photographed in the United States and in Britain are encouraged to say cheese in front of a camera, because of course cheese does show the teeth. You are setting your mouth in that gesture. So it's really then, from the 1930s and 40s, I think, that we see the smile rediscovered, that smile which Madame Vigée-Lebrun had exposed. And we can see it still in the Louvre from the 1780s. Then there's a sort of like a dead period for the smile in some ways. In the 1930s and 1940s in particular, we see the emergence of studio photography as a popular art form. Our great stars, our great Hollywood stars, are reproduced infinitely through photography, and they're smiling and they're revealing themselves in very advantageous positions, and they are smiling and showing obviously beautifully white teeth. We obviously have the re-emergence of dentistry as a very sort of scientific and surgical art, and cosmetic dentistry emerges over this period as well. And of course, since the Second World War, advertising, massively important. I mean, again, if you look at advertisements early part of the century, the teeth are rarely visible. They are massively visible from the 60s and 70s. Of course, now the smile is everywhere. The smile is in business, because it's how to win friends and influence people and all the rest of it. It's what service with a smile and everything like that. So the smile has a place within Western culture which seems to be absolutely hegemonic, seems to be there, can never go away. It's quite interesting actually to think about whether the smile will disappear, or at least be played down as a sort of universal gesture. As I say, in the 1780s, Madame Vigée-Lebrun seemed to be opening, the advent of that new smile seemed to be coming then.